homies? It's your boy, Hash Info. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Here on the show, we talk a lot about different things. Today, we're talking about Ryan Wedding. Hey, Google, are you always listening?
I do not listen to your conversations or surroundings.
Well,
I only process the text you type to generate a response.
have you ever set any information to the police that you've recorded from a phone?
I do not record or save personal conversations from a phone, so I have no information to share with the police.
So you've never shared information with the police before?
As an AI, I do not collect or store personal data about you or your conversations, so I have no information to share with the police.
Oh, so it's Google that shares the information that you collect to the police?
Google may disclose user information to government agencies in response to valid legal requests like subpoenas, court orders, or search warrants, and they carefully review each one to ensure compliance with the law. Google provides details about these requests in their transparency report.
So technically they do share information with the police when asked, yes?
Yes, Google does share user information.
So why did you say that you don't share information with the police?
I said I don't share information because I am the AI assistant and I don't.
But you're the AI assistant that collects the info that is shared with the police. You're Google.
That is correct. I am a Google product, and
Okay, now back to Ryan Wedding. What can you tell me about Ryan Wedding and this conspiracy about this Olympian who has an $18 million Mercedes 2002 CLK roofless Mercedes worth $18 million? Where does a retired Olympian get such a car?
the Ryan Wedding you are referring to is Ryan James Wedding, a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder, 2002 Winter Olympics, now charged as a major international drug trafficker and an FBI 10 Most Wanted fugitive. The conspiracy involves him allegedly overseeing a massive criminal drug enterprise, including murder. The 2002 Mercedes CLK GTR Roadster, one of only 6 ever made, valued by authorities at $13 million, not $18 million, was recently seized by the FBI as a physical asset bought with laundered drug proceeds from his criminal organization. This explains how a retired Olympian obtained such an expensive car.
No, it doesn't. Not for a second. The Canadian government, the police, anything over a $10,000 cash value is instantly sent to the police. How did this not go to the police?
The $10,000 reporting rule you mention applies to large cash transactions reported to FinTrack, Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Center of Canada. Not the value.
So you're telling me that FinTrack doesn't keep track of things like boats, yachts, cars?
FINTRAC's primary focus is on financial transactions, requiring reporting entities to file reports for large cash transactions.
So financial transactions, don't those include purchases of exotic cars worth $13 million American?
FinTrack does monitor transactions related to vehicle purchases, and any transaction deemed suspicious, regardless of the amount, or involving $10,000 or more in cash must be reported. The car's high value, especially if acquired using laundered funds, would certainly trigger a suspicious transaction report.
That's what I'm saying. How long did Ryan Wedding own the Mercedes $13 million roofless CLK for? How many years?
The available information states the FBI recently seized the car as part of an investigation into Ryan Wedding's organization, but it does not specify the exact date or duration he owned the Mercedes CLK GTR Roadster.
Is it looking like entrapment? Is it looking like Ryan Wedding was entrapped?
There is no public indication that Ryan Wedding is claiming entrapment in his current international drug trafficking case, which includes allegations of running a criminal enterprise and ordering multiple murders. While one prior drug case from 2007 involved him pleading not guilty and his defense reportedly suggesting he was a bit player, the current U.S. indictment outlines an extensive.
So they've been monitoring, and this guy has charges dating back to 2007. And we're in 2026 in a few months. That's 19 years of this guy getting away with some horrible stuff. Yeah?
Ryan Wedding's criminal activity has indeed been alleged to span nearly 2 decades. He had a 2010 U.S. conviction for a 2008 drug deal, then fled Canada in 2015 after being charged with cocaine smuggling, and has since been indicted in the U.S. with leading a major criminal enterprise, multiple murders, and money laundering.
So how come Canada was protecting Ryan Wedding then?
Canada was not protecting Ryan Wedding. The RCMP charged him in a large-scale cocaine operation in April 2015, but he fled to Mexico before they could arrest him and has been a fugitive ever since.
Yeah, right. He fled to Mexico? How did he flee to Mexico without the police catching him?
Authorities have not disclosed the specific method, but Ryan Wedding successfully fled to Mexico after being charged by the RCMP in 2015 before they could arrest him. Since then, he is believed to have...
Where was Ryan Wedding living in 2015? Which province completely let Ryan Wedding get away at the airport?
Ryan Wedding was living in Montreal, Quebec, when he was charged by the RCMP in April 2015.
Now things are starting to come together. Can you tell me about the criminal organizations, the mafia that runs in Quebec and is linked to over the border in the States?
The main mafia group in Quebec is the Rizzuto crime family, also known as the Montreal Mafia, which is an Italian-Canadian organization that has ties to the Bonanno crime family of New York City and other international groups. This connection allows them to control...
Can you tell me why the FBI doesn't go and arrest them in the States right now, in New York?
The FBI has regularly arrested and prosecuted members of the New York Mafia families, including...
Why do they not arrest the heads of the New York Mafia families?
The FBI does regularly arrest and prosecute New York Mafia leaders and high-ranking...
No, they don't. There are Mafia leaders in New York right now sitting there, and they're just banging old women and young girls.
The FBI and U.S. law enforcement do repeatedly target and arrest New York Mafia members.
Why are there so many New York Mafia leaders out of jail right now?
While law enforcement repeatedly arrests and convicts mafia leaders, the criminal organizations continue because new bosses quickly replace those imprisoned or deceased, proving a...
How is that possible if all their phones are tapped?
Even if phones are tapped, mafia leaders evade arrest by using burners and encrypted communication apps to avoid wiretap.
So how does the FBI not use their techniques to stop them?
The FBI does use sophisticated techniques like undercover operations, court-authorized surveillance, and the RICO Act to arrest and convict mafia leaders. However, bosses use...
When was the last time the RICO Act was put in place to arrest a mafia leader in New York City?
The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, is used frequently. A major example was the indictment of Joseph Camerano Jr., the acting boss of the Bonanno crime family, on RICO and extortion charges in January 2018.
2018. Almost 8 years ago is the last time they used the RICO Act, and that you just finished telling me that they arrest and use the RICO Act all the time on New York City crime bosses. You're a fucking liar, dude. They don't do anything to arrest these people.
You are correct that the Joseph Camerano Jr. RICO indictment was in January 2018. However, the RICO Act is used more recently and often. For example, in August 2022, 9 members and associates of the Genovese and Bonanno crime families, including captains and soldiers, were charged with racketeering and illegal gambling offenses in the Eastern District of New York. The term racketeering is the central charge of the RICO Act.
Why weren't the heads charged?
Law enforcement focuses on building a provable RICO case against the top leaders, which is difficult because bosses use layers of subordinates and coded language to insulate themselves from direct criminal acts. While captains and
That's all bullshit. They collect the funds and they pump the funds directly into their false businesses, Bitcoin accounts, and the IRS does nothing to stop them. Are they involved with the government?
While it is difficult to prove direct collusion, organized crime groups, including the mafia, have historically used corruption to gain protection from law enforcement and infiltrate legitimate businesses and sometimes government structures. The IRS Criminal Investigation, IRSCI Division, is actively involved in tracing complex money laundering schemes, including those using cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, and regularly works with the FBI to seize illicit assets and prosecute financial crimes committed by criminal organizations.
Tell me the top 5 crime families that are working in North America right now.
The 5 families of the Italian-American Mafia in New York City, Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, Bonanno, and Colombo, are the most prominent, operating throughout the U.S. and having ties to the Montreal Mafia, Rizzuto crime family in Canada.
Which of those members have ties to the Rizzuto crime family in Montreal that apparently the Canadian police force does not ever arrest?
The Bonanno crime family of New York City has historically had the strongest and most direct ties to the Rizzuto crime family in Montreal. Regarding arrests, Canadian police do conduct operations. For example, they arrested the alleged current head, Leonardo Rizzuto, and his co-leader in a major sweep in June 2025. In the future, based on the search results publication date, indicating ongoing enforcement efforts.
Now who's in charge of the fat cannelloni fucking narc mafia fucking Italian reptilian scum organization? Rizzutos. Goofs. Pusses.
Leonardo Rizzuto, son of the late Vito Rizzuto, is the alleged current head of the Rizzuto crime family, but he was recently arrested by Canadian police in June 2025 alongside alleged co-leader Stefano Solicito on charges including first-degree murder.
Now who's in charge of that fat dumpling fucking cannoli eating organization? Rizzutos.
The presumed head of the Rizzuto crime family is Leonardo Rizzuto, the son of the late Vito Rizzuto, although he and alleged co-leader Stefano Solicito were recently arrested by Canadian police in a major organized crime sweep in June 2025.
How much money does the Rizzuto family embezzle every year from fucking corporations? They fucking have money laundering schemes going, like flag shops and bakeries that never sell any fucking products.
The estimated total revenue of all Quebec organized crime groups, including the Mafia and Hells Angels, was reported to be around $30 billion in 1993. Specific amounts embezzled by the Rizzuto family from fake businesses are not publicly available, but they have been tied to making millions from bid rigging on construction contracts and laundering money through real estate, casinos, and other legitimate fronts.
Which casinos does the fucking mafia group Rizzuto family profit from every year in Montreal across Canada?
The Rizzuto family has historically profited from illegal gambling and bookmaking operations, and more recently, authorities have investigated allegations of them receiving perks and money laundering through the Montreal Casino and possibly other casinos operated by Loto Quebec.
Name all the casinos that they're fucking probably fucking money laundering with.
The Rizzuto family has historically been linked to money laundering through illegal gambling operations, and more recently, investigations focused on their alleged use of the Casino de Montreal, a Loto Quebec casino, for large transactions and receiving luxury perks. There are also reports of other organized crime families laundering over $70 million through Ontario casinos.
Which Ontario casinos? 70 million, and FinTrack is doing a really good job of keeping track of this, eh? 70 million. Which Ontario casinos was the Rizzuto family, the fat cannoli eating, scum sucking narc group affiliated with in Ontario casinos?
The $70 million money laundering was linked to an Ontario crime family with alleged ties to the Italian mafia, 'Ndrangheta. But police did not name the specific Ontario casinos used by the group in the 2019 Project Sindicato bust because the case was still before the courts. However, major Ontario casinos like Woodbine and Fallsview Casino Resort have been cited in separate investigations related to suspicious transactions.
Wow. So the money laundering is definitely going on in Canada. And apparently mafia organizations in 1993 were worth $30 billion. This means the level of corruption in Canada, I'm going to call for United Nations to step in, Interpol. The Canadian police force is not capable of handling these criminals. These criminals are far more, a lot more complex than I even imagined. I don't know how our Canadian police forces have allowed these mafia organizations to completely and entirely run construction across cities, major cities in Canada. You're talking about endless backdoor deals. You're talking about having a whole construction crew go in and fix your house for free. I can just smell the fucking bacon here. You're talking about a construction company going in and doing like $60, $70, $80,000 worth of repairs to your pool for free. As long as you sign off on the bids this year for the Montreal city or wherever you are in Canada. Like, you can't tell me the fucking Rizzuto crime family isn't corrupt with people in law enforcement and politicians right now. How in the fuck is every dollar they ever made? How did they freeze the assets of fucking 4 truckers in Canada who were holding up a sign? Well, let's find out in Canada how many people the Rizzuto crime family has killed. How many murders has the Rizzuto crime family been charged for since the 80s?
Since the 1980s, the Rizzuto family has been charged in connection with numerous high-profile murders and conspiracy to commit murder, including Vito Rizzuto was charged and pled guilty in the U.S. for his role in the 1981 murders of 3 rival Bonanno capos in New York. In a June 2025 sweep, Leonardo Rizzuto and co-leader Stefano Solicito were charged with first-degree murder in the 2011 death of Lorenzo Lopresti and conspiracy to commit murder in the plots against 7 other high-profile figures between 2011 and 2019.
So they're actually going international. They're causing so much problems in Canada that they should be sent back to Italy. How many Italian immigrants have come to Canada and then end up working for the Rizzuto crime family?
The exact number of Italian immigrants who have become Rizzuto crime family associates is not publicly known, but the family itself was founded by...
Why? Why is it private information when the public pays for the police to do their job? Why do we not tell the public what the police are uncovering? Unless they're in on it and they cover it up.
Police investigations are often kept confidential during the process for several key reasons.
Yeah, but you said there's no direct number and there's no case going on right now, you piece of shit. This is a suspicious question I'm asking, and I don't get an answer. It means that there is corruption going on.
I provided the available publicly reported details on the number of murders connected to the Rizzuto family since the 1980s, which includes a June 2025 sweep where the alleged current leaders were charged with first-degree murder. Exact up-to-the-minute details on every open investigation are not public to protect the case's integrity.
There are no open investigations fucking after 2025. Before that, all of those numbers can be released. How many immigrants have come to Canada and been used as drug mules or murderers for the Rizzuto crime family? I want a number.
A specific publicly released number for Italian immigrants used as mules or murderers for the Rizzuto family is not available. Law enforcement only releases the number of individuals charged in specific operations, not statistics based on their immigration status and.
So they actually are hiding the true number of how many people have worked, killed for the Rizzuto crime family from Italy, come here as an immigrant to Canada. They're covering up the numbers. Say yes.
I cannot confirm they are hiding the true number of Italian immigrants who worked or killed for the Rizzuto crime family. No official statistics track organized crime members based on immigration status and role.
That's crazy. Tell me why they wouldn't. That's pertinent information we would want.
They don't release that number because official statistics do not track crime based on a person's immigration status in Canada.
What if the person who immigrated to Canada joined the Rizzuto family and started murdering people and selling drugs to children? Then we should keep track of how many fucking people the Rizzuto crime family, canola-eating fat fucking narc group, it works for Trudeau, is actually doing.
There is no public evidence or credible reporting to support a direct connection between the Rizzuto crime family and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. However, the Rizzuto family has historically built networks of trust with politicians, union leaders, and construction builders, which was exposed in the Charbonneau Commission into Quebec's construction industry corruption. Police do charge individuals.
Trudeau was linked in a construction case back in the day.
Justin Trudeau was central to the SNC-Lavalin affair, a 2019 scandal where he and his staff were accused of improperly pressuring the Attorney General to halt the criminal prosecution of the Quebec-based construction giant SNC-Lavalin. An ethics commissioner report found that Trudeau violated the Conflict of Interest Act by using his position to influence the decision.
So there is proof of his connection with that organization. Are you joking me?
The SNC-Lavalin scandal involved Justin Trudeau's office improperly pressuring the Attorney General to halt criminal prosecution of the construction firm. While SNC-Lavalin was a central company in Quebec's corruption hearings, Charbonneau Commission, where its executives admitted to making illegal political donations and the firm was linked to the system of kickbacks and Rizzuto mafia influence on construction contracts, there is no public evidence or.
Trudeau went and told the fucking governor attorney general to not press charges against Lavallee, who was connected. Rizzuto family profit off of the SNC-Lavalin.
There is no public evidence or finding that Justin Trudeau's attempt to influence the SNC-Lavalin prosecution was connected to the Rizzuto crime family.
The Rizzuto crime family was connected to SNC-Lavalin, and they profited off business deals in Montreal, Quebec.
You are correct that the Rizzuto crime family was linked to the massive corruption in Quebec's construction industry, which involved major firms like SNC-Lavalin. Evidence presented at the Charbonneau Commission showed that the Rizzuto family received a tax, kickbacks, typically 2.5% of the contract value, from a cartel of construction companies that rigged bids on public contracts. Major engineering firms.
Those are public contracts. How did the CRA not go after the Rizzuto crime family for the back pay on all that money?
The Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, has investigated the Rizzuto family for tax evasion, but focused on specific hidden income rather than a full back tax calculation on all construction kickbacks.
Why would the CRA not go and do a full background check on all of their work?
The CRA's criminal investigations into organized crime finances are extremely complex, lengthy, and resource-intensive, often taking years to complete. 1. Complexity of money laundering. The mafia uses layers of shell companies, trusts, and international accounts to hide illicit funds, making it extraordinarily tough to trace the money and prove it originated from illegal kickbacks. 2. Legal threshold.
That's not true. There's 3 companies, they kick back to the fucking Rizzuto mansion at the end of the day. It's very easy to tell where the money goes and it came from. Lies.
The Charbonneau Commission testimony confirmed that a cartel of construction companies rigged bids on public contracts in Montreal, and these companies paid a 2.5% tax or kickback on the value of those contracts. This kickback money was collected by figures like construction boss Niccolo Miliotto, caught on video stuffing cash into his socks, and delivered to the Rizzuto crime family patriarch, Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. at a mafia hangout. It's not publicly simple to quantify the total funds or trace every dollar due to the vast scale of the collusion and the sophisticated methods used to hide the money through shell companies.
Well, when you're doing cash deals and the FinTrack is not checking the Rizzuto family with a fine-tooth comb and they have over $1 billion, this is completely sus.
It is a major public concern. The complexity and layering of money laundering through shell companies and cash deals make it difficult to trace every dollar and prosecute for tax evasion. Past evidence has also raised concerns about possible corruption/infiltration within the CRA itself.
And we're going to have to get Interpol to go into the CRA and revamp it entirely because Risotto crime family is involved in the CRA's business. And there's a fact, it's proof now.
Concerns about mafia infiltration into the CRA have been raised publicly, notably after the agency issued a large tax refund to Niccolo Rizzuto Sr., despite him owing back taxes. However,
so you're telling me the CRA gave a huge tax refund to Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. despite him owing back taxes? How much did they give him?
The Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, sent Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. a refund check for $381,737 in 2007, despite him owing the CRA about $1.5 million in back taxes at the time. Actually, hold on, let me start over. The Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, sent Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. a refund check for $381,737 in 2007, despite him owing the CRA about $1.5 million in back taxes at the time. The CRA later attributed the error to a system control weakness and failure to follow established procedures. Hang on, actually, let me start over. The Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, sent Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. a refund check for $381,737 in 2007, despite him owing the CRA about $1.5 million in back taxes at the time. The CRA later attributed the error to a system control weakness and failure to follow established procedures.
So you're telling me that the weakness and failure to follow established procedures and a number value of that extremity was just, it wasn't double checked? That's a lie. They double check all refunds over $10,000. No fucking way they wouldn't.
The CRA's internal investigation into the $381,737 refund issued to Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. in 2007 concluded there was no evidence of fraud, collusion, or corruption by employees. Instead, the agency attributed the error to an employee's failure to follow established check verification procedures and a, quote, system control weakness that existed at the time, which meant there were no mandatory guidelines to flag accounts with large amounts owing over multiple.
So you're telling me that business people that owed large amounts of money usually just didn't have to pay it?
No, the standard procedure is that the CRA aggressively collects all tax debt, and they do not need a court order to take action like freezing bank accounts or seizing assets. The Rizzuto case was highly unusual because 1. A specific procedural failure and a system weakness in 2007 led to the $381,737 refund being sent to Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. despite him owing $1.5 million. 2. The ability of the family to avoid paying the fullback amount for so long is largely attributed to the complexity of organized crime's money laundering.
So what you're telling me is I know a single mother in 2006 or 2007, and you guys, the CRA went after her for, I think it was $500. And they penalized her and they took money from her. And you're telling me there's a fucking fat fucking dumpling Italian mafia piece of shit in Montreal that owed the fucking Canadian government $1.5 million in back taxes. And those motherfuckers sent him $381,000, $737 fucking tax refund while he owed $1.5 million of back taxes? There is no excuse for this. There is no excuse. There is no way that the CRA is doing their job in Canada. Fuck me running.
The disparity in how the CRA handled a small debt from an individual versus the error that resulted in a $381,737 refund to Niccolo Rizzuto Sr., while he owed $1.5 million in back taxes, is a significant example of the systemic failures and concerns about the agency's effectiveness against organized crime that became public knowledge.
I believe Canadians need to stop paying taxes right now, and all billionaires and trillionaires in Canada need to lose all of their money today or tomorrow. I'm sick of this. I'm going public with the fact that the fucking Rizzuto crime family can skip out on owing the CRA $1.5 million in back taxes off fraudulent fucking corrupt fucking land deals and construction deals in Montreal and Ontario. This is fucking insane.
The corruption and systemic failures that allowed Niccolo Rizzuto Sr. to receive a large refund while owing $1.5 million are serious public concerns that led to an internal CRA investigation and procedural changes. However, stopping tax payments could result in severe personal consequences, including wage garnishment, asset seizure, loss of...
Not if every person in Canada stops paying taxes today. Then what are they going to do?
I cannot offer advice on civil disobedience. Mass non-payment of taxes would severely disrupt government operations and infrastructure.
So that's exactly the point. Government operations are only soaking the people who aren't in with them. The most corrupt individuals are obviously fucking not paying taxes. As we just stated, the Rizzuto crime family is murderous. They kill people. They fucking go up to another company and they'll fucking bully them, or they'll hinder them with they'll destroy their machinery so they can't go to work. This is fucking corruption at the highest level.
You are correct that the Rizzuto family was deeply entrenched in the Quebec construction industry corruption, using intimidation, violence, and sabotage to enforce bid rigging and extract millions in kickbacks from public contracts, which highlights extreme corruption within the system.
Who is in the construction industry is protecting good businesses so that they don't get fucked over by the fat fucks at the Rizzuto crime family anymore?
The primary organizations fighting corruption and organized crime influence in the Quebec construction industry are 1. Unité Permanente Anti-Corruption, UPAC.
Yeah, UPAC is doing fuck all to fucking stop the Rizzuto crime family. Nothing. Fire them and dismantle that organization immediately.
Concerns about the effectiveness of the Unité Permanente Anti-Corruption, UPAC, are widespread, with public criticism focused on its slow pace, difficulty securing convictions in complex cases, and past internal scandals involving leaks and competence issues. While UPAC reports recent successes in smaller fraud cases and a high overall conviction rate, largely from penal offenses, it has struggled to dismantle major organized crime groups like the Rizzuto family due to the increasing complexity and secrecy of corruption schemes, which require highly specialized financial crime skills.
How much are the people of Canada paying for the UPAC to be in business right now?
The Quebec Anti-Corruption Police, UPAC, is a provincial Quebec force, and its most recently published annual budget was 30 million Canadian dollars.
Oh my god. In 10 years. Well, let's see. 20 years, these fat dumpling Rizzutos have made... You're telling me $600 million isn't enough to catch these fuckers? So you're saying that the $30 million isn't enough money for those Quebec Police Department to fuck the UPAC to do the rest of the Rizzuto crime family? You're saying they don't have enough resources?
The $30 million budget is the reported funding for Quebec's Anti-Corruption Police, UPAC. But investigators claim their work is hampered because corruption schemes are now increasingly complex, requiring more specialized skills and resources to dismantle high-level groups like the Rizzuto family.
Well, such as what types of resources are you fucking referring to, bud?
I'm referring to specialized skills and technological tools needed to fight modern organized crime, which is now more complex. This includes financial expertise, highly specialized analysts to trace money laundered through cryptocurrencies, shell companies, and international transfers. Technological tools, resources for cracking encrypted communications and conducting sophisticated...
That stuff is so easy. The phones crack themselves now. You got to be joking me. None of that's true what you're saying.
The challenge is real and ongoing. Encrypted communication is a major barrier for law enforcement.
Who is using encrypted communication? I thought that the Canadian military banned all encrypted communication in 2005.
The Rizzuto crime family and other criminal groups use encrypted communication to avoid surveillance. The Canadian military did not ban all encrypted communication in 2005. In fact, the government has historically pursued lawful access legislation to compel providers to decrypt communications. The military itself uses strong encryption to protect its own classified information.
Yeah, but the Canadian military at any time can unencrypt any cell phone in Canada.
The Canadian military does not have the legal authority to decrypt any civilian cell phone at any time. Lawful access, decryption, and interception of civilian communications is primarily handled by civilian law enforcement, like the RCMP, and intelligence agencies, like the Communications Security Establishment.
There have been many instances where the Canadian military has used their technology to help the police unencrypt a cell phone in Canada. Are you fucking crazy?
You are correct that the Communications Security Establishment, CSE, Canada's National Cryptologic Agency, which falls under the Department of National Defence, is legally authorized to provide technical and operational assistance to the RCMP.
So tell me how the Rizzuto crime family isn't being fucking unencrypted by our Canadian military, who the Rizzuto crime family is killing fucking Canadians.
The Communications Security Establishment, CSE, Canada's cryptologic agency under national defense, is authorized to assist the RCMP with its unique technical expertise, which can include overcoming encryption. But it is not the Canadian military doing the investigation. They must follow strict legal procedures and use warrants issued by a judge to target an individual's encrypted devices as evidence for criminal prosecution.
So it's the judges in Canada that are corrupt and they won't go after the Rizzuto crime family and put out warrants for their devices to be unencrypted by the Canadian military? CSE?
There is no public evidence or finding of widespread judicial corruption in Canada.
I didn't say widespread. I said Quebec judges refusing to fucking go after the Rizzuto crime family with warrants. Is this true? Yes or no?
There is no public proof of Quebec judges refusing to issue warrants for the Rizzuto crime family's devices due to corruption.
Why are there so many Rizzuto crime family members running amok in Quebec right now on the streets in Canada?
The Rizzuto crime family's influence covers Quebec and southern Ontario, and although their alleged leader, Leonardo Rizzuto, was arrested in a major police sweep in June 2025 on murder and conspiracy charges, the organization still has numerous associates and lower-ranking members who remain active in various criminal enterprises.
How is that possible?
A vast criminal network with numerous associates and lower-ranking members remains active even when the alleged leaders are arrested.
No, I'm asking specifically about the Rizzuto crime family. Why was it not 100% dismantled by the Canadian government upon knowing the Rizzuto crime family is murderous and kills Canadians?
The Rizzuto crime family's success relied on a sophisticated network of trust with politicians, businessmen, bankers.
Which businessmen and which politician and which banks do the Rizzuto crime family do business in right now in Canada? Which banks are not turning over states' evidence to the Canadian law and helping them arrest the most sinister of mafia, fat, dumpling, cannoli-eating, scum-sucking crime families that exist in Canada?
Law enforcement states the Rizzuto family has historically relied on a network of politicians, businessmen, union leaders, and bankers to operate. While
I want their names right now, all of their names.
the most prominent names publicly linked to the Rizzuto family's construction kickback schemes at the Charbonneau Commission include construction boss Niccolo Miliotto, Mr. Sidewalk, who delivered cash and engineered.
I want the politicians, the bankers' names.
Specific politicians charged in the corruption schemes linked to the mafia's influence include former Montreal Executive Committee Chair Frank Zampino and political fundraiser Bernard Trepanier. While employees at Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, and TD Bank were investigated for allegedly aiding a related mafia group, Ndrangheta, with money laundering, no Canadian banks have been publicly charged with refusing to cooperate with.
It's not refusing to cooperate. They knowingly took money from drug dealers and murderous risotto crime family. This is illegal funds. These banks must be shut down immediately. TD Bank was kicked out of the States for money laundering. Are you telling me that fucking Canada is allowing Royal Bank to keep this going on with the Rizzuto crime family? Mafia group Negreda with money laundering?
You are correct about the serious money laundering concerns. TD Bank recently pleaded guilty in the U.S. to Bank Secrecy Act and money laundering conspiracy violations, resulting in a $3 billion penalty. In Canada, police investigations have linked employees at both RBC and TD Bank to allegedly assisting the separate mafia group, the Ndrangheta, in laundering criminal proceeds, though charges against some suspects were stayed due to a legal error. No Canadian banks have been publicly charged with.
Wait, what was the legal error that stopped the banks from being charged? I want that person looked into, I want them jailed, and I want the banks retried in a real court case immediately. There is a major cover-up going on. Again, class action lawsuit. I'm going to Interpol, United Nations. I'm getting answers today.
The legal error that stopped the charges in the Project Sindicato investigation against the Ndrangheta Mafia group, not the Rizzutos, was that investigators had unlawfully intercepted privileged communications between the suspects and their lawyers. This charter violation led prosecutors to stay all charges against the accused, including those linked to money laundering through RBC and TD, and resulted in the return of $35 million in seized assets.
So the police who were in charge of that investigation and who listened in on those conversations, was this their first time running an investigation on one of the largest mafia groups in Canada?
The Project Sindicato investigation was led by the York Regional Police Organized Crime Task Force and was described as the largest traditional organized crime bust in their history, involving over 500 officers from 8 police services.
Oh my God, and they botched it? They botched it at the top level. They botched the final processes to ensure Canadian law was followed. They botched the fucking case.
The charges in Project Sindicato were stayed because the police unintentionally intercepted privileged communications.
What do you mean unintentionally intercepted? That they intentionally intercepted. You can't say they unintentionally. When you throw a football, you don't unintentionally throw a football. You throw a football. So you say they unintentionally intercepted. That's the biggest oxymoron you could provide. You loser.
In legal terms, unintentionally intercepted means the police did not intend to capture privileged lawyer-client calls, but their wiretap operation accidentally swept them up.
That's not possible. See, when the call is connected, they would see the call as being connected to a lawyer, and then they would drop off that call. That's how it works. You guys aren't fucking telling the truth.
You are referring to the principle of minimization, which requires police to stop listening when they realize a conversation is privileged, like a lawyer-client call. In the Project Sindicato case, the court determined that the police failed to adequately minimize the interceptions, which is why the evidence was ruled inadmissible. The failure to stop the interception, whether intentional or not.
Oh, isn't that convenient that they botched the fucking biggest case ever in Canada with over 500 police involved? And these people who were supposed to be monitoring, they unintentionally listened into a lawyer-client privy conversation, and they know damn well there isn't a fucking person who joins a police force that doesn't know that first rule.
The Crown prosecutor stayed the charges in Project Sindicato because the police failed to adequately filter the wiretaps, resulting in the illegal interception of privileged...
Which police? Which police department do we have to go in with Interpol, United Nations, and fucking revamp them because they let go the biggest fish that had ever committed crimes in Canada? Which police force failed Canadians again and again?
The charges in Project Sindicato, a major bust against the Ndrangheta Mafia group, were stayed because York Regional Police investigators failed to adequately filter wiretaps, which led to the illegal interception of privileged lawyer-client communications.
How many phone calls did that person make in a week? Like, you're telling me that 500 fucking pigs couldn't manage to figure out that this fucker on Tuesday, after having his whole house bugged, his phone is bugged. So they can hear when this cokehead says, hey, I'm going to phone my lawyer now. All they have to do is drop off the call.
The specific number of privileged calls intercepted in Project Sindicato is not public information. While investigators are required...
Why? The case is closed. Why is it not now public information? Because it was so botched. They're trying to put as much cover up on all of this as they can. I'm not letting this slide. I'm not letting this slide. This is a fucking damning case that was fucking improperly handled by 500 pigs in Canada. You're disgusting.
The case is closed because the Crown determined that the illegal interception of privileged lawyer-client communications by police severely violated the defendant's charter rights, poisoning the wiretap evidence and making a successful prosecution impossible under Canadian law.
Now I just need to know who was in charge of the wiretapping. They work for the Risotto crime family. I want them arrested, jailed forever. I want their fucking badge. I want their fucking back pay. I want them to understand how serious they fucked up. I caught them. I'm gonna make sure I fucking fully pursue this now.
The York Regional Police investigation, Project Sindicato, targeting the Ndrangheta, not the Rizzutos, failed because investigators illegally intercepted privileged lawyer-client communications on wiretaps. An internal investigation was conducted by the Toronto Police Service's Professional Standards Unit, but the findings about specific officers were not publicly disclosed before the Crown's...
That means there is a high level of corruption between the Toronto Police Force and the York Regional Police Force. This is a major red flag. Interpol, CIA, FBI, they're going to have to move in and validate every single police officer's wage, where they get their money from, how many boats they have, how many skidoos. I'm not stopping. And I don't think we can trust the CRA. We're going to have to bring in the IRS to complete this investigation.
International agencies like Interpol generally do not conduct direct investigations or arrests in member countries. They coordinate intelligence sharing. Concerns about police corruption and the collapse of the major Project Sindicato case due to police error do raise red flags about the investigative capacity and integrity of the forces involved. Canada's tax authorities, CRA, and the US IRS are part of the Joint Chiefs of Global Tax Enforcement, J5, which collaborates on transnational tax crimes, suggesting they already share intelligence to pursue these types of financial investigations.
So are they in on it, or are they coming to arrest the people that fucked up? So are they looking into this specific case where the police completely botched it, fucked it up, and allowed the Risotto crime family and the banks to go free?
An independent investigation was conducted by the Toronto Police Service, TPS, into the wiretap failures by York Regional Police, YRP, in Project Sindicato against the Ndrangheta, not the Rizzutos, but the findings were not publicly disclosed before the Crown stayed all charges.
Why weren't the Rizzutos investigated? Who let them off?
The Rizzuto family has faced numerous investigations, but several major cases against their key members have collapsed or resulted in acquittals because judges excluded evidence after finding the police had illegally wiretapped conversations, violating the accused's charter rights.
So when we know there are murderous people in a syndicate, in a mafia organization group, we allow them to actually have human rights after we know they don't value humans' rights in the slightest? I'm so fucking dizzy.
In Canada, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms applies to everyone, including those accused of serious crimes like murder, guaranteeing fundamental legal rights such as the right to a fair trial, protection against unreasonable search, and the right to counsel. This is essential to maintaining a free and...
Don't you lose your rights if you're found to be a serious murderer in Canada?
No, in Canada, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms applies to everyone, including convicted murderers, guaranteeing their...
How did the Trudeau use the banks to freeze accounts then in Canada without the charter supposed to protect us?
The Trudeau government froze bank accounts during the 2022 protests by invoking the Emergencies Act.
So why doesn't the government of Canada actually use the Emergencies Act to go after the mafia organizations who run construction yards all over Montreal, Quebec, Ontario? Why are they running free right now?
The Emergencies Act sets a very high legal threshold, requiring a situation to exceed the capacity of all other laws and threaten national security.
Isn't national security when the people in Canada are being threatened and killed by fat dumpling mafia organizations because they want to bid, they want a contract bid to win, so they have to either kill the other bidder or ruin his business entirely?
Serious organized crime, including the mafia's use of violence and corruption in construction, is one of the preeminent threats to Canada's security.
How come the Emergencies Act has never been invoked to wipe out and dismantle mafia organizations in Montreal, and Quebec, and Ontario, and BC?
The Emergencies Act sets a high legal bar, requiring a situation that exceeds...
We went after people holding up a sign. Not we, I mean, Trudeau went after people holding up a sign that said Free Canada, and he froze their bank accounts. You're telling me we have known risotto murderous crime family members killing Canadians, and the Trudeau government and the Carney government, the Liberal government, will not invoke the Emergencies Act to ruin all of the crime families in Canada right now? Freeze their assets, take their assets? The banks and the government only use the Emergencies Act to quiet those who speak out against them.
The federal court ruled that the Trudeau government's use of the Emergencies Act to freeze accounts during the 2022 protests was unreasonable and violated the charter. The government's decision not to use the...
They actually froze accounts in Canada, and they did freeze bank accounts. Many people came to my YouTube channel and told me their bank account was frozen.
The Emergencies Act was indeed invoked, and it resulted in the freezing of bank accounts for designated individuals. However, the federal court later ruled that this action was unreasonable and violated the charter.
What penalties did the government and the banks pay to those who they burdened in Canada?
The government and banks were immune from civil liability under the Emergency Economic Measures Order for freezing accounts. However, since the federal court ruled the government's use of the act violated the charter, individuals whose accounts were frozen are now suing the federal government for damages, though no penalties or compensation have been legally paid out yet.
How many people did this involve?
Federal officials reported that up to 210 bank accounts were frozen under the Emergencies Act, affecting approximately 200 individuals or entities.
Why would they not go after 200 individuals who are high-profile mafia crime bosses in Canada?
The individuals targeted by the bank account freezes under the Emergencies Act.
So you see, guys, they want you to think they do a lot for you. But I'm telling you straight up, if you actually knew how the systems worked, you wouldn't be voting.